I'm working on a tennis roguelike game and I'm attempting to finish it in 4 weeks. So this devlog marks the exact middle point of my 4 week challenge here. How am I doing? How are things going so far? Well, lucky you, I'm going to talk to you about all of that. I'm going to talk to you about design decisions this week. I'm going to talk to you about a new limb type that we added to the game, and I'm going to talk to you about getting back on track after a difficult kind of week of maybe not being as productive as I had hoped on being. This week, I made some difficult design decisions around the sharp limbs. So we have a pizza here that you can see is one of these sharp limb types. It has a 10, 20, or 40% chance to remove a limb when a cheese ball hits. I know that sounds like gibberish, but that's just torso tennis for you. It's a tennis game where you stick nonsense to your body and you look for limb synergies between your limbs. So it borrows a lot from auto battlers, but also traditional roguelikes. And your run is a season of tennis. So basically, the sharp limbs have the ability to remove limbs from your opponent. So say we're going up against Nets tennis next, like we have a chance that this tennis racket or this leg will just be removed in the middle of the match. And we had a difficult design decision with this because when you remove a limb, all of its stats are removed too. So this limb here has one power. This one has one cheese, one health, one serve. When you remove a player's limb and it removes their health, that doesn't feel fair, especially if they're like down to one health and then you removed the slice limb from the player. That would be the victory right there. And it doesn't feel fair. Like the tennis balls should be the thing that are achieving victory because that is what you're able to actually track and defend against as a player. So we kind of had this weird situation. You know, when I say we, it's mostly just me working on this game, but I tend to talk things over with chat when I'm live on Twitch. And we were discussing this problem of the sharp limbs, right? How do I indicate to the player that their health is being removed temporarily and they get it back after the limb is returned to their body? I just couldn't feel like I found, even like sketching out all the UI and trying to come up with iconography that would make it more clear to the player, it just never felt exactly like fair when I walked through all the scenarios. So what we actually ended up doing is just saying that sharp limbs don't affect health. Health is a max health stat. So when your max health is removed, it's calculated at the beginning of the round and it doesn't matter. So we just updated some item descriptions to kind of make that clear. And I think it's pretty good solution. Like sometimes with these design decisions, it's like, it's not always about what would make the most tactically interesting gameplay. Like that's cool. And there's certainly plenty of that to be had here with all the limb synergies and everything. But I think like simplicity is really important when making these decisions. So often I'll just pull up a document and write all of the different like potential ways I can think of solving a problem. And I will tend to, by the time I've finished writing it often and explaining the pluses and minuses, I'll have my favorite solution. And sometimes if I'm still not sure, I'll like shop that by a few people. That's like one of the skills I use the most when I worked on a team as a designer is like just find a design problem in the game, make a bunch of options for kind of solving that problem and present that to the team with your favorite and what you recommend, but also just gather information and talk to people, about their feelings on it. So that's the big design decision that I kind of had a rant that I wanted to talk about. Simplicity is really great. The other thing that we added last week was a new limb type. So if I roll here, I might find one eventually. Let's go ahead and use the free money cheat here so we can roll indefinitely. Oh, we have a tentacle, which is the spooky limb type. When you gather a bunch of spooky limbs, they allow you to do this ability called a rip, which is literally like ripping a hole in the tennis court. Let's go ahead and grab this tentacle and let's see if we can roll into a couple more of these spooky items because they're kind of fun. So when you rip the hole in a tennis court, it essentially serves as like a weak spot for your enemy. And if you serve a ball onto that spot, it's like an auto score. Okay, so we have the skull, which is another spooky limb. We have the bone, which is another spooky limb. Let's jump into the game and see if we can't see a tear happen. Now, these are just like the level 1 limbs, so they're not always going to proc the ability right away. But you can kind of see what... Okay, so there we go. We've got one spawning up at the top corner of the map. So if I go and I hit the cross-court spot here, I can serve directly into it. Now, we didn't use it at all. But that's basically what the tear looks like, the rip in the reality. It's its first week in the game, so we're still going to balance it out, make it a little more effective, I think. But I really like the direction that all these spooky limbs are going. It just feels like the tentacle just feels like it fits right in. Same with the skull, like the art style, it feels right. So my goal for last week was to do audio-visual polish on the game, but I kind of scrapped that actually in favor of putting in this spooky limb mechanic because the secret final boss of the game, I want to have this weak spot ability, right? When you fight a boss, a lot of the fun aspects of it are kind of like identifying the weak spot and hitting that, and you feel like very smart for having discovered the boss's weak spot and hitting it. So I had to kind of make this weak spot mechanic already and explain it to the player through a full set of limbs and even a boss, which I've started to put in this week, like a mini boss that uses this spooky limb mechanic. So I did have to like reshuffle things quite a bit, in addition to the fact that I wasn't as productive last week as I would have liked to. I didn't hit my kind of hour counts that I usually try to hit, like 4 very focused hours on my game per day, and I didn't hit that last week. That's okay. I do feel like we're still headed in the right direction with this, and we have all of next week basically as a to-do list blank week to try to close up all the loose ends. I'd say the big thing right now is just that secret boss. Getting that in is going to take a little bit of time, and I hope I'll be able to get that done before the end here, because we did end up making Steam achievements for completing that final secret boss. So the secret boss kind of has to be in the game. I don't feel like I can call this like a complete, I finished making my game, unless the all of the achievements are achievable, and that secret boss feels like a core part of the experience. I'm just pulling up the video of me editing this calendar now, but it's still like, when you get off track, it's important to circle back to your original plan and edit it, and whatever you have to do to keep things moving along. That's my little nugget of wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, inspiration for you. When you fall down, when you feel like you might have... Oh, by the way, this is like today is like Wednesday. Like, I didn't get all of these spooky limbs in last week. Like this all hung over into week 3 instead of week 2. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, yes, I didn't quite land where I wanted to, and it hung over into the next week. But now I'm feeling like that sense of momentum again. I'm hitting my goals, which is the most important thing, to just kind of like, when you find that momentum, to tap into it and try to create habits that allow you to, find that momentum. So overall, I'm feeling really optimistic. Torso Tennis Demo is going to get a big update soon, and then we're going to start looking at when we're going to launch it. So wishlist the game on Steam to get notified on launch, and I'll catch you in the next video.